Hopefully this will just be a quicker video today. I was looking for something to talk about because I was up late finishing yesterday's video to about 4 AM, and this whole discourse on Twitter and on the internet popped into my feed, so I thought I would talk about it because it's not just something relegated to Hasan Piker buying an expensive house. It's been used a lot with Bernie Sanders as well, so I thought I would give my opinion on this type of stuff and this kind of belief that if you're a socialist, you can't have nice things and you can't participate in capitalism. Essentially, if you're a socialist, people think you should be poor or living very basic accommodation like a self-built cabin in the woods. And I do want to address the criticisms of like using a lot of money when you claim to be a socialist and talk about redistributing wealth and stuff like that. But I do feel like the backlash is pretty overblown. Here is a popular Twitch streamer who made most of his money fairly ethically, as much as you can in the capitalist system, bought a home in one of the most expensive places you can buy a home, and I'm going to talk about that as well. And he's also giving his brother and his mum a place to live. So again, I don't think this guy is the most evil person, but we're going to talk about all of that stuff. I'm going to plug my social media and Patreon for about a minute. Skip that if you're not interested. Before we get any further, a lot of my work on this channel is demonetized because when you're covering more serious, sometimes edgier topics, YouTube doesn't like this. So if you've ever enjoyed my work, please consider becoming a patron. And you don't have to pledge a crazy amount. I want to build up my Patreon based on as many people as possible, pledging little amounts like $1 or $2. So if you feel like I have ever brought anything that's worthwhile into your life and my content, please really consider becoming a patron to help me continue to do this regardless of if YouTube monetize or not most of my videos in a given month. Also, if you want to join our communities, come check out our Discord and my subreddit. Those links in the description. And if you want to follow me personally, please check out the Kavernacle at Twitter, at Instagram, and also my personal Reddit, where you can keep up to date with all my content and what I'm doing. Every 5k we get a new chocolate orange. Help me grow the pyramid, help me get to, I guess, 45 or 50k by the end of the year to get a couple new chocolate oranges. I also live stream normally 2 times a week, and I archive that on my second YouTube channel, the Kavernacle Extra. So there's a website called dirt.com, and I think it just documents and writes articles about celebrities who buy property. I don't know if it's specific to LA, but I remember reading it while talking about Jimmy Dore and talking about Dave Rubin buying expensive houses in LA. So the article says Twitch phenom Hasan Abi talks his way into West Hollywood home. Now it says the price was $2.74 million, 3,800 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 5.5 bathrooms. Now it says about him. Now about 1.5 years after leaving TYT, he's hoovered up enough clout, audience and revenue to shell out $2.74 million for a spacious home along the pretty tree-lined street in West Hollywood's bustling and centrally located Beverly Grove neighborhood. A secured and tightly hedged, if otherwise bland and featureless courtyard fronts the 3,800 square foot Pan-Mediterranean style residence that was built in 2014. And then the article just goes on to talk about what it looks like inside and everything. And I'm not sure who brought this up. This article was written 7 days ago. People say Destiny maybe brought it up on stream. I'm not too sure, but then loads of people started talking about it. So Hasan tweeted at 7 AM, everyone collectively needs to calm down. Then Breitbart, left-wing Twitter weirdos, socialism is when no house. Now, Mouthy Infidel tweeted, if you're rich, it is in fact immoral to not donate a significant amount of your money to charity. And Hasan quote tweeted this and said, I do donate, some public, most not. However, this is a brain-dead take that keeps dumbasses thinking that Bill Gates is a good guy, by the way. I admit I probably come across too aggressive with this random person, but the necessity of charity is an indication of systemic failure. It's still useful to help out mutual aid organisations in the short term, but that's not how you solve structural problems. The rich also use it as a tax shelter. Now, Destiny's lawyer replied saying, what the F is reply? Mouthy infidel never said donating money cancels out all the bad you do. Just like if you're rich, you morally should be donating a significant amount to charity. Are you seriously arguing that it's not immoral for Jeff Bezos to hoard billions of dollars? Hasan saying, wealth hoarding is wrong. Generating that immense wealth through exploitation only to then use the profits to continue strengthening systems of subjugation is incredibly immoral. I never said he said charity cancels out the bad. Other annoying people saying, Hasan, come on man, stop lashing out. If you do donate, be more visible about it, put it front and centre and set an example for other people to follow. But simply donating to charities isn't enough. Organise politically and spend your money on getting policies like Medicare for all passed. Someone else saying, I don't know man, it's just flat out unethical to be profiting off socialism and buying yourself a $3 million home in a state that has one of the highest homelessness rates in the country. If you're mad, I find this to be gross and unprincipled behaviour. I really don't care. Some other reaction, the squirrel person saying, being a socialist does not mean taking a vow of poverty, but it does come with certain expectations of behaviour, like not doing ads for gambling sites and using your platform to help the cause. Standards Hasan meets easily. Not buying a house is not on that list. There are also other factors to consider, like how the money is made. Donations from streaming does not involve an exploitative relationship, but I do believe having a reasonable sense of maximum wealth level is good, as discussed in this thread. By the way, I use exploitative in the Marxist sense, so involving a boss-worker relationship where the latter has their surplus labour value forcibly extracted by the former. Hasan is the person in that relationship, not his subs. Taylor Swift isn't exploiting people who buy her albums. Good politic guy saying, why do so many people on here think socialism is when nobody can have nice things? You're literally just using Republican talking points. Uncle Jenk saying, I'm super proud of Hasan for becoming incredibly popular without selling out or shitting for right-wingers. He stuck to his principles and never chased right-wing or mainstream media approval of cash like a sad little puppy dog. He won people over by being his own man. Ethan Klein saying, you already think that Hasan shouldn't be able to own a nice house and also champion for the poor and underprivileged. There's a difference between making billions on Twitch and paying 50% in taxes and Jeff Bezos being worth 150 billion and paying no taxes. Happy Hasan is crushing it. That gamer boy for the win saying the only base thing to do is remain a wage slave who does not own the fruits of their labour and to retire and die without having spent any more in one go than the rent you pay per month. Only through this suffering can one truly say capitalism is bad. So a good take on the Vosh subreddit. Someone said, Hasan bought a house with the money he earned at his job. Earning money doesn't make him a capitalist. He's not a business owner exploiting employees. He's not a landlord or a billionaire living off passive income. The house that he bought isn't a mansion. It's a 2-story house with a pool. It's not extravagant, especially considering some of his family lives there too. The price he paid for it is totally normal for California real estate. I live in Texas, one of the cheapest real estate markets in the country. A house here that is extremely similar is close to $500,000. This is in a small town. Multiply the cost of that by 5 or so to account for California's real estate market. Add another multiplier to the account for the current insane real estate frenzy, and you can see it's totally comparable. Then finally, Hasan tweeted most recently, I live in LA, the housing market here is effed. Why is the argument that I should keep renting or that I should go gentrify somewhere else? Will this solve the problems? No, people are mad because lefty with house. That is it. So, my opinion, I generally agree with the freak out about him buying an expensive house to be pretty ridiculous. Now, I'm obviously like a content creator, nowhere near as big as Hasan, but my income comes off YouTube as a platform and Patreon. So, thanks so much to the people who are patrons. At the moment, I make a pretty modest amount of money. I really do rely on ad revenue on YouTube, but the Patreon is really good for just having a base level. But in terms of me making money through these things, first of all, through YouTube, just like through Twitch for Hasan and his YouTube channel, he's participating in a capitalist system, which is the global economic system that we all have to participate in. If you start a corner shop, if you start like a local grocery store or something, does that mean you're necessarily a greedy capitalist if you start that with your family? There's always potential for these things to grow into more capitalist ventures. Hasan could hire a bunch of people, treat them very badly, exploit their labour value, but he's not doing that. And for me, for example, I'm one person. I make my videos, I record them myself, I edit them myself, I make the thumbnail myself, I do everything myself. If I keep growing and growing and growing, let's say I hit 1 million subs and loads of patrons, and maybe one day I can also afford a 2.7 million home for me and my family, am I a capitalist? Am I an exploitative capitalist by doing that? By making content people like, and then they give me money because they like that content and like the value it adds to their lives or the entertainment value? Does that make me a greedy capitalist? No, it doesn't. Capitalism doesn't necessarily equal making money or participating in capitalism. We all do it. We all have to do it to survive, unless you're really good at like hunting on land that isn't owned privately anymore, which seems hard to find. Then you are probably living within the capitalist system. I am going to get into the amount of money he has and stuff in a bit, but making a lot of money through these platforms doesn't make what you say about general capitalism any less meaningful, because like a lot of people are outlining there, compare Hasan to Jeff Bezos, for example. The problem in the world is not people like Hasan Piker or Bernie Sanders who can make a lot of money through fairly ethical means. It's the people who are like untouchable, an unparalleled amount of money, which translates to an amount of power, which they have literally extracted from exploiting their workers. Think of something like Amazon. Jeff Bezos recently thanked every employee at Amazon for sending him to space. Does this guy need to go to space? No. So how could he afford all this stuff? Well, he affords it by treating Amazon workers really badly, union busting Amazon workers. He can afford it by how bad he pays them, right? That's the problem. That is a greedy capitalist. And there are loads of like mini versions of that. And I've experienced an awful capitalist in my old boss at my workplace. She owned the company. She was joint CEO of the company with her husband. She treated us like garbage. She paid us like garbage. And why she paid us so low is so she could maximize her profits. That is a greedy capitalist. And she bought a really nice second home. That's an example of how someone who runs a business is an awful capitalist using the exploited wealth to buy themselves more property. So as making money goes, I'd say donations on Twitch and Patreon subs are some of the more ethical ways. And people have said to me before, like, oh, you hate capitalism, but you have a Patreon. And I'm like, yeah, because I need to survive in capitalism, but I'm simply asking people, if you like my content and want to support it continuing at the rate it is, please consider giving me $1 a month. It's totally voluntary. There's no pressure. I'll continue making the content regardless of what you do, but that just enables me to do this in a better way, fund my equipment, fund the editing software I need, and also sustain my general lifestyle. And sometimes I may buy a nice thing for myself. I may buy a video game. I may go to the cinema or go get dinner with my girlfriend. That doesn't mean I'm exploiting people to fund my good time. I'm literally working hard, hope people appreciate it. And yes, I'm also participating in the capitalist system by doing my work on YouTube, where awful corporations run ads on my video, but by running those ads, that helps make me money. Of course, it's not perfect. In a perfect world, I wouldn't have to have these ads running because the Patreon would sustain me, but at the time I do. But again, we don't live in a perfect world. We don't live in a socialist world. We live in a capitalist economy, a global capitalist economy. I'm just trying to participate in that economy as ethically as I can. And just like Hasan, I'm not exploiting people. I'm just doing this. You guys give me money because you like the content. And that's the end of it. There is no abuse of power and there's no exploitation of labor. So I think him housing his family detracts a lot from the people saying, oh, Hasan bought a mansion. So what about the people who say like they're not comfortable with someone who claims to be a socialist spending this much money on a house? Now, of course, Hasan has talked about the market in LA, and that is something I can really relate to because I live in London. I would love to continue living in my local area, and if I made enough money off YouTube and Patreon, I would continue to live here, but the house prices around here are totally insane. You're looking at like something like 300 to 400k for an apartment to buy, and obviously you're gonna have to get a mortgage for that. But that is something I would like to do. I'm never gonna have the ability to do that, but if I was in Hasan's position and I wanted to continue to live in LA and I wanted to house my family, then I probably would bite my tongue and pay a massively inflated rate to stay in a nice place with my family in the place I like to live. Now, he says he gives to charity privately and he gives to mutual aid privately. So let's just, in good faith, take him at his word. He does that. Now, I think that's totally fine, and I don't mind too much people questioning him a bit more in terms of like, how much do you give? Is it a lot of your money? Or do you just spend it on stuff that helps yourself? But also people got to remember two things, right? Is that he's only 30 years old. He's bought this nice house, so he's now secure in terms of his housing, doesn't have to rent anymore. And he can continue to make money. So now he's more secure. Hopefully he continues to make money, and then he can also donate more money because he's not saving up for a house, for example. He can use more of his, I guess, surplus income to help causes he cares about. Now, another thing I want to talk about is why it's a bit frustrating people all getting outraged and saying he's not a socialist. Whether or not you consider him a socialist or not, he is one of the most popular Twitch streamers who advocates for socialist policies to people who are probably like fairly young, right? So he has an inherent value. If you are a socialist, and even if you don't accept him as some sort of socialist, surely you can see the value of reaching an audience of people that not many socialists can reach in large numbers like he can, and helping them understand these things. Not thinking Marxism is an inherently dirty word. And he's literally advocating policies that increase his own taxes, for example, right? He's not someone like Jeff Bezos or the numerous billionaires and multimillionaires in America who fund political candidates to get themselves tax breaks. He's not doing any of that. He's actively promoting policies that would hurt his financial state. So this whole thing reminds me of the stuff with Bernie Sanders in the presidential primary. Do you remember what people would say? Crazy socialist Bernie is not actually a socialist because he owns 3 homes and he has $1 million. I don't care if politicians or talking heads on Twitch have $1 million or, you know, a couple $1 million if they make it ethically and they're doing it out of necessity. So Hasan wants to buy a home in LA for his family, right? So let's have a look at this article from the Daily Mail last year. So exclusive, take a peek at best known millionaire socialist Bernie Sanders' 3 homes, 1 in DC and 2 in Vermont, after Mike Bloomberg mocked rival for his $2 million property portfolio. So the article is saying, despite being a self-described socialist and the scourge of the elite classes, Bernie Sanders is in fact a millionaire with a property portfolio that includes 3 homes, which are pictured in an exclusive dailymail.com photos. The 78-year-old Vermont senator's property portfolio was mocked by presidential candidate Mike Bloomberg during Wednesday night's debate as he remarked, "The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What did I miss? You missed that I work in Washington, house 1, responded Sanders. I live in Burlington, house 2, and like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven do you live in?" Although Sanders wants to put hefty taxes on the wealthy, his homes, which combined are worth close to $2 million according to Zillow, are far more than the working people he champions could ever afford. So you heard it there, folks. People like Hasan and Bernie Sanders can never champion policies of redistribution of wealth or just helping general working class families because they own property that is expensive and a lot of people couldn't afford that property. So I also want to talk about the photos. So he owns a main residence in Burlington, Vermont, a 1-bedroom in DC that's half a mile walk from the Capitol building, and he recently put down $570,000 in cash for a lakefront cabin complete with a guest cottage in North Hero Island, Vermont in the summer of 2016. They look fairly ordinary. Look at that apartment in DC. Does that look like it's like the height of luxury? He also needs it for work. He's a senator. And his DC apartment is actually the most expensive. It's $700,000 to show you how crazy inflation is in certain parts of the country, proving Hasan's point. So Insider did an article. Bernie Sanders just ended his presidential bid. Here's what we know about the finances of one of the least wealthy US senators who's made $1.75 million in book royalties. He earns a yearly salary of $174,000 a year as a senator. His total reported assets amounted to less than $750,000 in 2015, which made him the 77th wealthiest senator that year. The richest senator is Democrat Mark Warner from Virginia, who's worth a minimum of 90 million and a maximum of 402 million in 2016. Sanders has made more than $1 million for the first time in 2016, largely thanks to book royalties, which earned him about $868,000 that year. The next year in 2017, Sanders made about $1 million and more than $880,000 of that came from book royalties. He and his wife bought a 4-bedroom house in Vermont for $405,000 in 2009, for which they obtained a $300,000 mortgage. Jane Sanders told the Burlington Free Press at the time that the home purchase was funded by a variety of sources. She sold her share in her family's longtime vacation home in Maine to her brother for $150,000 and borrowed some money from her retirement account. The couple also used an advance from her book her husband was writing. So there Bernie Sanders has 3 properties, and he used a lot of the funds he made from writing a book to buy them, right? And they also make a lot of sense. So he has a family home, that's about $400,000. He has a 1-bedroom apartment in DC that doesn't even look nice for $700,000. Then he has a lake cabin for another $500,000. But it's clear he can afford these things from the book sales. So a lot of the problems with this property stuff specifically is that property has just been inflated to an insane degree that even basic housing for a lot of these people, in terms of Bernie's family home and the apartment, just cost absolutely extortionate prices. And why does that happen in places like DC, LA and London? It's because massive landlords just buy up all the property, and a lot of the time they just sit empty. And a lot of them are totally in bed with the government. Loads of landlords are in bed with the Tories in the UK. It's part of the reason they want people to go back to work so much, so these people's property doesn't go down in value because no one wants them anymore. But you guys have all seen community centres and other places being completely changed into just apartments that no one wants and gentrified and stuff like that. The property market in the UK and the US is out of control. So I don't really correlate in my head Bernie Sanders spending a couple million on free properties, mainly to help with his work, as Bernie Sanders just, frivolously throwing money away on expensive things. And also in terms of the cabin or whatever, this guy is 80. Let him have his cabin. It might be a lot of money. He wrote 2 good books. I've read the first one. I really like it. This guy lived in pretty basic conditions when he was mayor of Vermont. He didn't even have heating in his home. So let the guy have his cabin. Let Hasan have his LA house with his mum and his brother. I literally do not care, and people are missing the bigger point. Here are 2 people who have been very good, especially Bernie Sanders, at helping so many people in a country that is so hostile to socialism understand some of the basics of socialism, or at least the spirit of socialism, right? Bernie Sanders, I believe, is way more socialist than he lets on, especially if you listen to him talk in the 1980s. But how many people have accepted more socialist policies because of him? Has literally been one of the most popular left-wing politicians in the history of the United States, has influenced so many people, so many movements. This guy is a good guy. I don't care about his free houses, supposedly. He wrote a book to make a lot of money. The same with Hasan. Like I said, I don't think, obviously, Hasan has had a bigger impact than Bernie Sanders, but he serves a similar purpose in that he's reaching a specific audience and helping them see the world through the socialist lens, helping them understand why policies like redistribution of wealth, for example, higher taxes on the rich, everything like that, why they are good. I'm not going to get at him for buying an expensive house to live in with his family, especially when he's made his money in one of the least exploitative ways you can make that amount of money. YouTuber, online influencer is a pretty, grey zone for this type of stuff, because a lot of the time you are solely working for yourself, just like me. And take my example of myself and how I make my own money through working completely for myself, doing all my own work, not exploiting anyone, and then just times that by the amount of popularity Hasan has, for example, the amount of YouTube subs or Twitch subs and views and stuff like that, and then would that make me an exploitative capitalist? And I think the only fair point is we can debate about how much he uses his wealth to give away to mutual aid and charities like that, and is there like a wealth ceiling he would put on himself? Is there an amount of wealth that he would say, right, I need to give a lot of this away because I don't feel good about having this wealth, which often translates sometimes to political power. I don't think Hasan will ever be that wealthy. So I understand that concern to an extent. But at the same time, in a country like the US, your whole life is controlled by so many masters. So you have your boss at work. And in the US, your healthcare is often tied to your work, which is totally insane. And then you have your landlord who can kick you out with like 30 days notice just because they want to sell or something. Out of all the things he uses this wealth for, I'm glad he used it to, make him and his family secure, so he no longer has to answer to landlords who can do whatever they want to you. So overall, socialism is not a poverty cult. We want to redistribute the wealth. It doesn't mean people can't buy themselves nice things as long as they're not being exploitative. I don't care. But anyway, that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you want to support my channel, like people support Hasan, check out my Patreon. If you want to follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at the Kavernacle. If you want to join our communities, Discord and my subreddit, all that is in the description. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.